Well, a very warm welcome, guys. Hi, it's Cassim, and welcome to the second episode of Student Problems. I want to firstly start off by thanking you so much for joining me. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to some of my thoughts and ideas and philosophies and tactics that I'm going to share with you today. And I hope that some of the things that I share with you today can be useful and they can be sort of a stepping stone to helping you in some way so that you can become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. So I have 5 questions today that I want to give my thoughts on, that I want to try and help you out with and give you perhaps my perspective on. And hopefully, as I say, I hope that they're useful. The first of which says, all my friends have stopped talking to me. So that's the first question I'm going to talk about. Then I'll talk about the second question, which says, I hate myself. That's what the person entitled it anyway. The third question says, my employer fired me for being in hospital ill. The fourth one says, would you date a girl who has feminist on her Facebook bio? And the fifth question that I want to share with some thoughts with you on and some advice on is that I'm going to be a dad. So that kind of sets the sort of the blueprint for where we're going to go. And as I say, I'm really kind of keen to sort of add some value to you. Many of you know that the reason why I started these questions was because I have so many young people ask me questions. So many young people are curious, they need answers to problems. And I wanted to create a platform where I can answer some of these questions which they ask me. And maybe if I get the same question, which I do usually a lot of the time, I can kind of signpost them to coming here to find the answers to some of those questions. I would like to preface this and say that I haven't planned any answers for any of these questions. I've literally just gone onto student forums and found questions that people have asked, and I thought might be interesting for me to give my perspective on. And I'm just going to kind of give you a freestyle of what if this was me in this situation, if I was talking to a family member or a best friend, this is the advice which I would give them. So it is honest advice. It isn't advice that's intended for me to be, nice or intended for me to be horrible. It's just, this is what I would do if I was in this situation and with the knowledge that I have today. By the way, if you find this video, what I share with you, useful, guys, you know what to do. Jump on my YouTube channel, Cassimotive, subscribe to it, and you would be an absolute legend. That's where I put most of my stuff, and you can help me grow my community there. Okay, let's go into the first question here. So the first question says, all my friends have stopped talking to me. Right, let me read to you what it says. So it says this, sorry for the rant, but I'm very angry. I'm sick and tired of having deadbeat friends who can't be bothered to keep a good friendship going. I made supposedly good friends at university, but once graduation was over, it seemed then that they're more than happy to throw the friendship out of the fucking window. We always talked at uni and for a few weeks after it finished, but now everyone has their own lives and can't be bothered to say hi every now and then. I tried messaging them every now and then to spark a decent conversation, but they just never seem to be in the mood, and it dies after 5 to 10 minutes. Even my best friend has stopped talking to me. I don't know what to fucking do anymore. I don't have any more friends, and the sad thing is, this has always happened to me. I never have any more messages anymore, ever. My WhatsApp is dead as anything. No one decides to message me on Facebook either. How the hell can people have like 10 conversations going on at once and I can't even have one? I don't know if it's just me as a person that's just so boring to talk to, but I doubt it, since they were all more than happy and interested to talk to me when I was with them. I've also tried to arrange to meet up, but they're just so busy that they can't even find a free Saturday to have a catch up. I never made long-lasting friendships. It seems to me that people only friend me as a matter of convenience. Then, once it's over, they just don't care anymore. But the thing is, It's not that I don't try to be friends. I do. When I meet new people, I talk to them and I get to know them. I get to know them more and then keep talking to them. Going out together and having fun. I don't know what to do anymore. Wow, what an absolutely fascinating question. Firstly, this person was anonymous. They didn't say their name. But I want to thank you very much for asking that question, because I think it's a really, really interesting question. And I want to firstly start off by saying that this is a very, very, very common scenario. You're not alone. And I can tell you from my own experience as Cassim that I have experienced this very circumstance. And let me explain to you, give you a bit of background. I am the kind of person where I hold loyalty as my highest value. I hold, like, if I'm your friend, I am your friend. To the degree that, let me tell you how serious I take loyalty. I take loyalty this serious that I haven't spoken to my best friend in over a year because of something that happened between us. And that I found, as me, from my perception, was a disloyal thing that he engaged in. And so what I would say to you is, the fact that you're going through this is you're not the only person who goes through this. Many people experience this. And my experience has been that most of the time when people go, and I'm generalizing here, but most of the time, or the people who experience this sort of scenario are individuals who have a really strong desire for connection. These are individuals who really value people above other things. And I think this is perhaps a different perspective for you to look at. As human beings, we all kind of have different values. Some people value having a really nice house over having a really good job. Some people value having an amazing job over having really good friends. Some people value having an amazing car over having a really good house. We all value different things. And the great thing for you, which is really interesting and you might want to consider, is that for you, you've just highlighted to yourself that clearly making friendships is something that you value over a lot of things. And it's a great thing because, you know, I've come to realize that ultimately people who live incredible lives have great friendships. And unfortunately, you are fighting a battle today particularly where a lot of people, the way that they believe you connect is by sending messages and not by being with people in person. In other words, people no longer make an effort. People don't want to see people in person. People don't want to talk to people over the phone. People don't want to send letters to people. And that era of individuals, I'm old school like that. I'm one of those people where I would much rather have a conversation with you over the phone than we text the entire day. Right? I'd rather let's have an hour conversation, really great conversation over the phone, than we send each other texts all over the day. Like I said, how are you? I'm here, I'm there. I'm just not one of those individuals. So the first, those are the couple of things that I wanted to just mention. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is that you talked about the fact that these friends of yours from university are no longer want to talk to you. One of the greatest lessons that I've had to learn in my life, and I think I actually talked about it in the last episode, is around the fact that part of maturity is that we have to get to a point where we understand that there are some people in our lives who are like scaffolding, right? There are some people who come into our lives, and you know, when a building is being like repaired, a roof is being repaired, the building will have scaffolding put up on it. And that scaffolding, after the work to the building or to the window or whatever, after the work has been done, the scaffolding will be removed. But a lot of people tend to attach themselves to people in their lives like that scaffolding. And we tend to think that some people in our lives are meant to stay, when in reality, those people are meant to come into our lives so that they can lead us to the best version of ourselves. For example, you might be in a relationship in your 20s which lasts 6-7 years, But after 6, 7 years, the relationships just it's becomes stale. It's not going anywhere. The relationship is not improving, and you've invested huge amounts over the last kind of 6, 7 years. But that person was never going to be the one. They were going to be the person who you discovered they weren't the one, so that when the one came around, you could realize, right, this is the one. In fact, had you not been through that relationship previously, if the one came along, you might never have even identified that they were the one. Does that make sense what I mean by that? It's a bit like, to put this into a different context, it's a bit like a lot of people tend to think about their life as if their life is a plane. So you know when you're going abroad on holiday, when you go abroad on holiday, you obviously have to like drive to the airport. If you park at the airport, you have to take like a shuttle or a bus usually to the actual terminal itself, and then you have to take the plane. The ultimate goal is to really go on holiday, right? Is to get to Spain, is to get to Tunisia, is to get to wherever you want to go. And a lot of people tend to get attached with the plane. They think that the plane is the destination, right? They think that the shuttle is the destination. The shuttle and the plane are not the destination. Absolutely. You may meet an attendant on the bus who's really nice, or you may meet a bus driver who takes you from your car to the terminal who's really amazing, but they were simply there to help you to get to your end destination, to the higher version of yourself. And so I would encourage you to realize that there are some people who've come into your life that weren't meant to stay, right? And you have to be vigilant of that. You have to be aware of that. In fact, you have to be able to give people permission to be able to come into your life and leave. Because if you don't give people permission to be able to come into your life and maybe be in your life for 6 months, for 6 years, for 3 years, what will ultimately end up happening is that you will become like a leech. You will hang on to them and actually inevitably push them away, because they're like, why are you being so controlling? Why are you making me text you? Why are you over texting me? Because they realize, that their intention was never to be with you for a long time. And I think the other thing that, and this has been really useful for me particularly, and I don't know whether this is going to be useful for you, I'm really vigilant about people's intentions, particularly about what it is that they're wanting from our interaction with each other, from our time together. Because I have in the past had the inclination to believe that everybody has the same intentions as me, right? I always used to believe, like, look, of course, if I've met you and we get on, we are going to be best friends forever. We are going to be friends that are going to be, we're going to stick together and we're going to know each other when we're like 56 years of age. That was the intention that I've always had. But actually, I've come to realize and learn from other people that some people are just bored and they just want to have somebody to talk to now. Right? Some people want you in their life, not as their best friend, but they want you as somebody to bounce ideas off. Some people want you in their life, not as a best friend or somebody to bounce their ideas off, but somebody to reaffirm them. Somebody to, like, for example, I'm guessing the reason why you're asking this question is because you're looking for people who believe what you believe, right? And you're looking for people to reaffirm what has been festering inside of you. Right? So what I would share with you is there are some people in your life that are going to come into your life and they have different intentions, and it's up to you to figure out what is this person's intention. Now, in realizing that, one of the things that you also have to realize is just because somebody may be wanting to be friends with you or have an interaction with you, for example, for 2 weeks or for a week or for an hour, it doesn't mean that their intention is bad. Right? And you've really got to open yourself to that. I remember when I was going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, which is Africa's highest mountain, on the plane from Heathrow to Kenya, I was speaking to the same man. And that man was a fascinating man. He had a farm in Africa, and he grew tomatoes and all for like Marks and Spencers and all sorts. And I learned an incredible amount. And at the end, basically what ended up happening was that I never got his number, his contact details or anything like that. And at the end of the interaction, I remember I thought, God, we've spent literally like 6 hours together. I know this man's told me about his family, his children, his farm, his business, how he started his business. And I'm never going to speak to him ever again. And I thought, what a waste. But then I thought, hold on a minute. Let me appreciate the fact that I've just bumped into somebody who shared with me their truth, who was brave enough to share with me who they were in the time that we spent together. And so I would just share with you to really look at that. Have you actually started appreciating the time, being grateful for the time that you've spent with people and not always clinging on to what is to come, forcing people to become who they don't want to become? Because clearly, if your mates are not texting you, if they're not stepping into your life and into that interaction, if you try to make them, then you are forcing them to come against their will. There is a saying that says that anyone who is forced to do something against their will is still of the same opinion. In other words, if you force them and you kind of manipulate them into somehow coming to see you, but they never intentionally, their intention wasn't to come and see you anyway, they're only doing it out of pity anyway. So you want, and you have to be strong enough to wait for people. And these people will come into your life that are going to be loyal, that are going to invest in you. But you have to be patient, and you have to be intentional, and you have to know where to spend the right energy. Because I bet you that there are some people in your life, whether you realize it or not, that actually are looking to be your friend, that actually do spend time with you. And sometimes this is why we have to spend some time in gratitude. Because when you start being grateful for what you have, all of a sudden you start seeing all of the other people who are in your life, who are interested in you. But sometimes when you're focused on what you don't have and what is lacking, you tend to miss what is in front of you. There is a saying that says, if you have both your hands out to your past, then it means you don't have hands out to your future, to what is in front of you. You can't hold on to your past and what people are not doing and what people should have done and why they're not spending time with you, and also embrace your destiny and also embrace the amazing people who are going to come into your life, right? And that's just something that I would share with you. And the other thing that I want to finish off with, which is something that you mentioned, is you talked about the fact that you make effort to get to know people, but sometimes people don't make the effort to don't make the effort to want to know you. And you speak to them and you get to know them and things like that, but they don't make that effort. I would share with you that, do you know what? You've got to give people a break sometimes. And I would share with you, and remember that, you know, and this is where perspective comes in. I remember I used to have a manager, and George, his name was George, and George used to say to me all the time, Cassim, put yourself in other people's skin. You know, the perception that you have of your friends is only one perception, which is a viewpoint of your life. And I will remind you that there is a lot of things that are going on in people's lives that they're not telling you is going on. So you may think that they're not texting you because they don't want to see you, but perhaps that you remind them of somebody in their family. You know, a lot of people push people away because without them even realizing it, let me put this another way. So a lot of people have never had love in their life. They've never had loyalty in their life. They've never had somebody come into their life and actually believe them and actually see them. And sometimes when we have somebody who comes into our life who shows us those things, we become frightened because we've never had this thing. It's one of the things that I've had to come to realization with in studying relationships and people and counseling, and it's been shocking for me to realize this, is that we would rather stick with something which is dysfunctional, fucked up, wrong, and really just absolutely toxic, but is familiar, rather than go with something which is pure, which is got vitality, which is better for us, but is unfamiliar. So in other words, if your parents treated you like shit, and then you meet somebody else who treats you like shit, and they manipulate you just like your parents did, you are going to gravitate more towards those people than somebody who comes into your life, who appreciates you, who wants to spend time with you. Because those people who want to spend time with you and who are authentic and who want to get to know you are not familiar. And it sounds weird to say this, but this is how people get into cycles of repeated circumstances where it's abuse, where it's dysfunction, because we gravitate towards whatever is familiar rather than what is best for us. And so I just want to remind you that some of the people in your life are going through stuff and you are actually triggering them in their own lives. I mean, I'm just giving you that as a different perspective to look at those people from. And so you may need to just wait for them, right? You know, people always come around. If you're really intentional and you're loyal and you're still there, if it was meant to be, it will be. Trust me. And this is where patience comes in. Because sometimes when you're younger, you want things now and you want to achieve them now. But you've got to be patient, my brother. That's what I would share with you. Thank you very much for the question, though. All right, so this now leads us to the second question that I was reading this week, which says this. Again, this came from somebody who, all these questions came from anonymous people. I don't know why people don't want to say their names, but anyway, it said this. It's entitled, I Hate Myself. And it says this. I can't forgive myself for some of the things that I've done. They're not serious. They're just little things that I'm ashamed of. I can't stop thinking about them. And now I hate myself more than ever. How do I forgive myself? How do I stop hating myself? Wow. What an incredible question. Well, I want to firstly start off by saying thank you very much for asking that question. And I think is a really, really interesting question. And again, what I would share with you is something that I usually share with people, which is this. That question that you've asked and the scenario that you presented, whilst the details may be different, this scenario is actually a very common scenario. In fact, most people who are listening to this can relate to this, right? We've all had things that we're ashamed of. We've all had things that we're not proud that we've done. Whether, you know, for example, in my case, it was my drink driving. You know, some of us have said we're going to have we've asked somebody to lend us money and that we haven't paid the money back, in all honesty, right? Some of us have been in relationships and we've been talking to multiple other people, even though we're with somebody who loves us. We've done things. I have somebody who I've been coaching and he cheated on his missus and she's an amazing girl. And I said to him, you're going to have to tell her what you've done, and I said to him, because out of respect for her, you need to tell her that you've cheated on her, not from the perspective of her being your girlfriend, but from the perspective of her being a human being, right? You are a human being, she's a human being. She deserves at least that respect, and give her the opportunity to make the choice whether she believes that you are worth investing in, even though you've cheated. And he went and told her and she forgave him. And so all of us have all made mistakes. All of us have things that we're ashamed of. And, you know, I can share with you from personal experience when I say that, you know, a lot of us, I don't have any trouble actually forgiving other people. Most of us are actually really good at forgiving other people, even though people have betrayed us, people have manipulated us, people have fucking fucked us over so many different times. We have no problem with that. But actually, one of the greatest challenges for many of us, particularly if you're a good person, is to forgive yourself. Forgiving yourself when you're a good person is far much more harder than forgiving other people, right? And so that forgiving of oneself is really a testament to the level of growth that you have to encounter. Because let me share with you, I've had to learn a particular lesson that has been really interesting for me, which is that in areas that we are naturally talented in, we do not grow very much. In fact, most of us, if we're naturally talented at something, we usually don't exercise it. We usually don't work it. So for example, if we are naturally really good at communicating with people or making friends with people, naturally we won't go and read every book on how to make more friends, on how to connect with people, because we're naturally good at it, right? On the opposite side, I have found that we can make incredible growth, far bigger growth in areas that we're weak in, but yet most of us don't spend time working on those areas, right? And so one of the lessons that I've had to learn is that if you are naturally somebody who is loving, going from a 6, let's say you're on a scale from 1 to 10 of like loving people, forgiving people, you're about a 6. You can easily forgive people. To go from a 6 of forgiveness to like an 8 is very, 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 very difficult for somebody who is naturally forgiving. It'd be far easier for you to do that than somebody who's never forgiven before, then goes and forgives, right? Sorry, it'll be much harder. My apologies. It'll be much harder for you. And that's why a lot of us find it difficult to forgive somebody. We find it easy to forgive somebody else, but we find it really difficult to forgive ourselves. Because forgiving ourselves is like moving from a 7 to an 8. A 7 to an 8, when it's your natural area, is really, really, really difficult to improve in. And so I would share with you that that is something that you need to work on, right? It is an ongoing battle. And also, I would share with you that sometimes when it comes to forgiveness, you have to give yourself some grace. So many of us, we put so much pressure on ourselves that we don't allow ourselves any room to breathe, any room for humanity. We don't allow ourselves to be human. And what I would share with you is, if you do not allow yourself grace to be able to be human, I can share with you that you will never allow other people the grace to be human. Because we can only take people as far as we ourselves have been. We can tell other people what they should do, but if we want to show them, if we want to lead them, we can only lead them to the extent that we have been. And so actually forgiving yourself is a lot bigger than just about you. Because if you don't forgive yourself, if you don't give yourself some room to breathe, if you don't allow yourself to make mistakes, you can't possibly allow other people to make mistakes. And so actually what ultimately ends up happening is you become some anal, controlling, manipulative person without intentionally meaning to do it. Because you will not allow other people room to breathe. You won't allow other people room to make mistakes. But when you acknowledge that you yourself are not perfect, when you acknowledge that you yourself actually do fuck up, that actually you do get things wrong, that actually you have room to improve, then actually when you see that in other people, you can say, do you know what? This person has fucked me over. This person has messed me over. This person has done this wrong. But you know what? They're probably having a really difficult time in their life at the moment. They're probably struggling with their weight. They're probably struggling with their mental health. It allows you to give people more grace when you step back and allow yourself that grace, right? And that's just something that I would share with you. And this will become even a bigger thing when you become a parent, because children model what they see. So if you have a child and your child sees you not being forgiving of yourself, the child learns that we are supposed to beat down ourselves, right? We're supposed to be really cruel to ourselves, and we're never supposed to love ourselves. We're never supposed to give ourselves grace. And I would share with you that start on that journey. Start on that journey of allowing yourself grace, of allowing yourself to breathe, of allowing yourself to make mistakes, right? And that may mean that you just have to see your situation as a matter of now, right? Forget about what you've done previously, but let's just see who you are now. So much of the pain that we experience in our lives is from where we've been and the expectation of who we should have been and why we were not like that. We weren't ready. There's a saying that Oprah has that I love. Oprah says, and I'm paraphrasing what she says. She says, when you know better, you do better. You would have forgiven yourself and made a different, you would have made a different choice if you could, if you knew better, but you didn't. That's why you haven't. But now that you know better, now that you've even recognized the error of your ways, you can now make the choice to improve it. If you desire it. That may not be something that you want, but if you want to, I'm just saying for you that grace is there for you. So thank you very much for that question. So this now leads us on to the third question that I have here, which is a very interesting question. So this says, is entitled, "My employer fired me for being in hospital ill." And it says this: "I worked at a bar and got the job just before the end of March when lockdown happened. After the pubs reopened, I have been ill twice within 2 weeks. The first time I had sickness, which was a fever and a migraine. I got tested for COVID and came back negative. I was then unwell again and taken into hospital for pneumonia as I had symptoms of very low temperature and looked very blue. After I came out of hospital and after a few more days of resting at home, my employer called me in and told me I was fired for breach of contract and being told off for more than 2 days in a month during being off for more than 2 days in a month during probation. He was unsympathetic and unreasonable. Is this fair? Is this unfair? I feel so angry about this." Wow, really interesting question. Thank you very much for the question. Okay, there's a lot for me to unpack this. I'm going to just preempt this and tell you right now that you are not going to like the answer that I'm going to give you. Okay, because I'm going to give you this answer from every perspective. And I will tell you right now that some of the things that I'm going to say you're not going to like. I just want to say this before we even get into this. So, let me break this down firstly by saying the fact that you've even asked this question already says that you are aware that in some way they were in the right, because you've asked, is this unfair? The fact that you asked that question shows you that you know in some way they had grounds for what they asked of you, for the reason why you were fired. Because you yourself mentioned, and this is where I think I want to ask you to really look at perspective, because I've seen this from your point of view. But my question is, have you put yourself in your employer's skin? Have you put this entire situation into context? Because without context and without putting yourself in the employer's skin, of course you're the victim. Of course they did bad to you. But let me ask you this question. If you put yourself in the position of the employer, there is a pandemic which is taking effect on a global scale. You're losing money. You can't open your business. You have people who are calling in sick. They've just started their job. So they've not shown, even if they were ill, as an employer, I would rather somebody, and this is my philosophy, okay, right? And you may not agree with this, but I'm just giving you my perspective. If I had somebody working for me, my rule is you come into work, and even if you're ill, if you're really bad, then you can go home. But the fact that you even come in is a demonstration of how serious you are about your job. And I'm starting to get the sense from the way you've written this and from the conclusion, and again, I'm making an assumption here now because I don't know the full story, because I'm only seeing this from your perspective. But I'm getting the faintest, and also let me say this, I'm giving this to you from the perspective that I have worked in hospitality for the last 12 years. So this scenario that I see here is not new to me. I've seen this scenario so many different times. And I will be honest with you and tell you that most people who end up in this situation usually are the ones who fucked up. They genuinely, you look, in the UK, we have a system where you cannot just fire somebody. And the whole point of a probation period is if the person shows that they are not good, if they don't show commitment, it allows you that opportunity to make that judgment. It just so happens that that judgment came at a time when two things happened in your life which you could not control. Well, three things, I guess. You had the sickness, you had the coronavirus happened at the time as well, and you had the lockdown. So you really, three things happened. But do you know what that teaches you? That's life. As Frank Sinatra said, that's life, right? And the reality is, this is not going to be an individual thing that's going to happen. This is going to be something that's going to happen for the rest of your life. There are some times when Murphy's Law is going to kick in. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time. Right? It will. And so what I would share with you is that actually this is a great lesson for you. For you to realize, okay, so how am I going to deal with this? But more because you need to learn how to deal with this because this is coming. This is not a one-off, I can assure you. The other thing that I wanted to share with you, which I think is really important in this scenario, is that I would say to you that you want to be very careful that you do not repeat this. I learned a very important lesson which was taught to me when I went to court and I was arrested for the second time of drink driving. I was in the court with a magistrate and the woman said to me, she said to me, Cassim, you clearly are a good guy. We have loads of references, people say you're a good person, and yet you've arrived in this court. And so she said this, she said to me, if you make a mistake the first time, then do you know what? Fair play to you. Everybody makes, and I'm paraphrasing obviously what she said. She said, fair play to you. Everybody makes a mistake. You know, sometimes you're naive. You know, sometimes things happen and you just don't know. If you make the same mistake twice, two things have happened. You either didn't pay attention the first time, okay? You didn't pay attention. So you didn't, you basically, it happened and then you just went and did the same thing all over again. And that usually is because you didn't realize the significance of what had happened. Or the second reason is you didn't pick something up the last time. In other words, you didn't pay attention and then say, okay, I don't want to do that again. If the situation happens a third time, one of two things is now a problem. You knew what had happened, but you couldn't help it. Or you knew what happened, or you made the same mistake 3 times, but you didn't care about the consequences. You want to be very careful that you don't get to the third one. Because when you get to the third one, now this is going to become a major problem in your life. And I say this to you because I've met so many people where in exactly the same situation as you, they blame their employer. They go to a different job, and guess what? The same problem occurs in that same job. They go to a third job, and guess what? The same problem occurs in the third job. I see it all the time. In fact, I work for a company at the moment, and this very scenario happened, which is why I can tell you, I know, I've seen this scenario over and over and over again. It plays itself. And usually, as I say, the person who is complaining about this is usually the person in fault. Of course, the employer can make errors in judgment, right? There's always room for people to mess up. But the British sort of working legislation puts people in a pretty strong position not to get fired. So you have to be doing something consistently or show some significant weakness in order to be fired from a job. So I would ask you to really look at, wasn't this your fault? Were you really not to blame? If you had a business and somebody did this, wouldn't you react in the same way? I don't know. Ask yourself, of course you couldn't help the sickness, right? But what I'm saying to you is, did you then call your employer on time? Did you call them 2 days before? Were you constantly speaking to them and saying to them, I'm coming in the next day, I'm coming in here. Should I be coming in? When should I come in? When's your thingy reopening? commitment, showing dedication. Because usually people who are like that, who are in this situation, do not show that dedication, right? And then they're surprised when this happens. I told you you wouldn't like the answer at the beginning of this, because most people, I've seen this scenario so many times, as I say to you, 9 times out of 10, it is on the fault of the person. But as I say, sometimes there's an anomaly, but based on everything that you've said, I can, without, of course, the details of yours might be slightly a bit different. You work for a different company, you work different hours, but the overview of it is exactly the same as I've seen so many times. That's my perspective and my answer on the question that you've asked me. That's what I wanted to share with you. So let's get to the fourth question of today, which says is, would you date a girl who has feminist on her Facebook bio? Wow, interesting question. Would you date a girl who has a feminist on her Facebook bio? Okay, this is a very interesting question. Again, thank you very much for the question. Yes would be the answer to that question. To give you the short answer, yes. And the reason why I say this is because somebody being feminist is not a indication of their character. It is an indication of their preference politically, of perhaps their desire to have the world a certain way, but it is not a representation of their character. In other words, what I mean by this is like somebody supporting Labour or somebody supporting Conservatives is not an indication of their character. Somebody being a doctor or somebody being a volunteer for a charity shop is not proof of their character, right? And what I would say is the fact that you're even asking this question is already setting alarm bells off, and should be setting alarm bells off for you, because this statement says that you are looking at people from the perspective of what they do, of the exterior of who they are, as opposed to figuring out what their character is like, who they are as people. And when you get into a relationship, you are not does it really matter if your missus likes Indian food or she likes Chinese? If she loves you, if she's loyal, if she's committed, if she puts you before anybody else, does it really matter? I don't think that it does. Now you might say, of course it does, because I don't like Chinese food. Well, that's a really interesting perspective, because then we're seeing your circumstances from your perspective, and you are now going into a relationship where you're not looking to be of service to your missus, to improve her life, to be an addition to her life, but instead you're looking for her to be of service to you. You're essentially coming from a place where you say she should be serving me. That's an interesting perspective, because if she should be serving you, that means that there is something in you which is missing. And she is not an addition. She is not like having a car and then the car being you, and then she comes along and she is like, you add a spoiler, you add 21-inch rims, right? She's an addition. If a car is good, a car is good. The issue is, if you take a really shit car and you try to add on their spoilers and all of this kind of stuff, the car is still at the core shit. If that makes sense, metaphorically speaking, if that makes sense. And so what I would share with you is, look for people's character as opposed to their preferences, as opposed to who they support, in terms of politics. Don't look at those. Those really don't matter in life, because people change over their time. Sometimes people have supported Labour and then later on in life they supported Conservatives. Sometimes people have liked Chinese food when they're younger, but as they've got older, they really like Japanese food, right? People's preferences change. Some people may like wearing hoodies when they're younger, but as they get older, they change, that they want to wear more more performative wear? Is it really a sign of their character? I don't think that it is. So what I would share with you is, I would really look at the filter in which you make judgments about people. And by the way, this is actually interesting because this is showing you as well the way you view yourself. Because if you view yourself from the matter and from the viewpoint of whether somebody's a feminist or they're not feminist, this tells you that you view yourself primarily externally and not internally. In other words, you don't think that what matters most about you is who you are and what you believe in and who you are as a human being and how loving you are and how kind you are and how compassionate you are. Instead, this gives me an indication that what's really important to you is how big your house is, how much money you have, whether you have the latest haircut or not, whether you have the latest PlayStation or not. And the issue that you have with that is if you attract women into your life who are looking for that, when those things are gone, they are also going to go. Instead, you want people to come into your life who are with you for you. I remember I was reading a book once which said that there are 3 types of people. There's people who are for you. Those are people who are with you whether you're up, you're down, you're in jail, you're not in jail, you're successful, you're unsuccessful. These are people who are with you regardless of your status, regardless of what you have, regardless of if you're a dickhead, regardless of anything. They're with you because they just like you as a person. And if you have 1 or 2 of those in your life, you're doing pretty good because most people don't even have 1. So if you have 2, you've done amazing to have 2 people in your life. And can I tell you something on this? Those people, usually you won't know who they are until tough times come. People who are for you, you won't usually identify until you hit rock bottom. Because they will be with you when you hit rock bottom. When things are going great, don't believe anybody. Don't believe anybody is for you when things are going great. If you want to know who is for you, watch what happens when you hit rock bottom. Then the book said that there are people who are with you for where you are. So those are people who are with you because of the fact that you want to build a business, because of you want to become successful, because you like labor, because of things like your social status. They like to live in a nice neighborhood. They like to they want to send their kids to a private school, that kind of stuff, right? But the one that you really want to be the most careful of is people who are with you because of what you hate and what you despise. Those are the ones that you want to be the most careful of, because people who don't like you will join you because they don't like somebody who you hate, right? They will join you because they don't like something. So for example, a white person who doesn't like a black person will get with a black person if their country is at war and there is a chance of their country being taken over. But this is where you have to be careful, because the white person still doesn't like you as a black person, or the black person doesn't like you as a white person, right? And after the war is finished, you want to be very careful that that person isn't trying to then come back and, like, it can be very confusing because they may be with you and you're thinking, yeah, but they like me. I mean, we've taught together, we've fought together, but then they will then go and backstab you. They will then go and talk bad about you. And you're like, what the hell happened? We've just been fighting together. So you want to be really careful of those people. And that's what I wanted to share with you in that. And I hope that it's been useful. The last one that I wanted to share today and give some thoughts on is this question which says, I'm going to be a dad. And it says this: I'm 28 years of age. I've been with my girlfriend for 8 months. She has 2 kids, aged 2 and 3 from a previous relationship. We found out 2 weeks ago that we are going to be parents. I am on ESA, but I would like a better income to raise our child. So I will try and find a well-paid job. Trouble is, I have never had a job. I've told my girlfriend that I worked as a builder for several years, but I had to make that up too. I will probably try and get a job as a private taxi driver for my first job. Have my own car, so that shouldn't be too difficult to get a job as a taxi driver. But I'm so happy. I didn't think I would ever be a dad, but obviously now it's coming true. My current girlfriend is also my first ever girlfriend, and I was a virgin up until I met her. She doesn't know that either. Lol. Wow. What a remarkable and interesting question. Okay, so firstly, congratulations. Congratulations on the fact that you're going to become a father. I strongly believe that becoming a father is one of the highest acts of manhood, of the living experience that anyone can ever experience. There is only two other things above it, which is number one, so above becoming a father is becoming a grandparent, because when you become a grandparent, it's an even higher feeling, because you just love your children unconditionally, right? You don't have to pay for them. They don't have to be with you. All you have to do is love them. In fact, as a matter of fact, you probably notice that a lot of people tend to love their grandparents more than their own parents. Why? Because their grandparents accept them for who they are. They meet them exactly where they are. Their grandparents just love them. The one above being a grandparent is loving somebody who isn't your own. Right? Loving your enemy, loving somebody else's children as if they were your own. That is an act which is beyond even becoming a grandparent. So becoming a father is truly one of the highest acts of manhood anyone can ever experience, and I really, really want to congratulate you. Okay, there's a lot of things here that I need to unpack. The firstly is the lying. I'm going to be blunt and say to you right now that you have a flaw in your character. Your intentions are good, but your character is flawed. In other words, whilst actually everything on the outside looks great, you can't be trusted, because the foundation for trust is integrity. Integrity means to be one, to be whole, right? And you cannot trust somebody who says one thing and does something else. The issue that you have here, and I would highly, highly recommend to you, is that you need to spend the next year, prior to your child coming into this life, or the next 9 months, if you will, you need to spend it working on your character. And the first thing that you have to spend it on is by telling the truth. Because one of the first acts and one of the highest acts of character, of becoming a man, is telling the truth. Seeing things as they are. Meeting yourself where you are. And I will tell you right now that I spend a lot of time with people who are successful but have loads of problems. Right? They've got everything, but there's loads of dysfunction and loads of I can't even speak right now. They have a lot of volatility in their lives, right? They've got loads of toxic relationship. They've got their kids, but they don't see their kids, right? They go to work and they're successful, but everybody at work hates them. There's just loads of chaos in their life, and part of the reason why that is because of the way they were raised as children. They saw their parents act in a certain way, and they emulated what they saw their parents. In other words, if you grow up with a father who hates himself, whether the father tells you that you should love yourself, you are going to act on what you see. If you grow up seeing your father lie to your mother, you will emulate your father, even though your father says that lying is bad. Because children learn most by seeing, not what they're told. In fact, there's a common phrase that you will hear with parents say all the time, which is they say, why don't you ever listen to what I tell you? The reason why is because children don't listen to what you tell them. They watch what you do. And let me share with you another thing about childhood, which is really important. Children are a lot more attuned to people's behavior than adults are. That's why somebody, like children and dogs are. A dog will bark even though an owner doesn't realize that there's something wrong. But they will bark at somebody who is a robber because the dog can sense something isn't right. A child will start crying and the parent doesn't know why the child is crying. But there's somebody near the parent and the child can sense it. Children are a lot more attuned to people because they watch everything. That's all children do. Children watch everything that everybody does. I always say to people that if you want to see what somebody is like, look at the children. If you want to know what a parent's like, watch their children. Because their children, they emulate their parents. Their children act a certain way. For example, if your friend's really nice to you, but you watch the interaction the children have with their father, and the children seem to be scared of their father, be wary. Why would a child act really submissive and act small in front of their father? They should be playful, they should be vibrant, right? And so what I would share with you is, unless you're attuned to who you are going to teach your child exactly the same as you. There's a phrase that says, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Literally, it doesn't, right? So your child will ultimately end up having the same emotional patterns as you, the same lying. In fact, recently, 2 days ago, I was coaching somebody and I was saying to him something that really upset him. He was saying to me, my father is, he hadn't told me this before, but I was asking him about his father and the relationship that he has with his father because he's been experiencing a lot of problems in his life. And so I said to him, tell me a little bit about the interaction with your father, because I know that men model their father. Men have to have somebody to follow. Men copy what we see. And so if you don't have a man in your life, you then feel lost because you don't know who to copy. Hence why a lot of young people end up in gangs and things like that. And I was coaching him and I said something that was upsetting for him because I said to him, I've listened to you over the last couple of weeks about things that you've said to me about. You've said to me that you're with a girl, but you're talking to other girls. You've said to me that your missus thinks you're a liar and sometimes you play her. And the fact that she doesn't want to have sex with you is because she thinks if she has sex with you, you're then going to leave her. Now, you've just described your father to me. You've said to me that your father got your mum pregnant, then was kind of in and out of her life. He never really married her, but they were together. They lived together, but then he would go off to Tunisia a couple of times every month. And so my dad, he said to me that my dad has remarried a woman and I've never met the woman in 6 years. And I said, where does your dad live? And he said, oh, my dad lives just literally down the road. And I thought, that's really interesting. So you've said to me your dad's like this, your missus says you're like this, you are basically the replica of your father. And he got really upset. And then later on he came to me and he goes, Cass, I wanted to apologize to you. I only got upset because what you said was true. Because he literally is a replica of his father and he didn't even realize that he was a replica of his father. Most men are not attuned to their behavior, to their emotional patterns, to their thinking patterns. And so what I would share with you is you've got to spend the next 9 months working on your character. And it's going to begin by being truthful with your missus. Tell her everything. Be honest with her. Do you know what? Have enough respect for her to allow her to make up her own mind. Right? Give her the respect as a human being for her to decide whether to stay with you or whether to break up the relationship or whatever it is that she wants to do. Give her the option. If you don't tell her and you continue lying to her, you are robbing her of choice. You are degrading her to the level of a prisoner. that you're not even giving her the option to make up her own mind about her future, about what she wants to do, about you. And that is something which is unfair for somebody to do. So I would share with you that that's really, all of your problems are going to be solved if you will get your character corrected. And the first thing that starts is you've got to start telling the truth from now on. The second thing that I would share with you, because this is too complicated for me to finish on, to continue going on, but the second thing that I would share with you that is going to be useful for you is you've got to do whatever is necessary. And this actually will help you build your character. Do not take shortcuts. Do whatever is necessary. If you have to work 2 jobs, work 2 jobs. If you have to move to a different city, move to a different city. If you have to go back to university, go back to university. If you have to go to college, go to college. Do whatever is necessary. Men who usually lack in character are individuals who've tried to take a shortcut to success. They've tried to take the elevator of success instead of taking the stairs. If you've ever gone up a set of stairs instead of taking the lift, you will know there's certain things that you learn along the way about yourself whilst taking those stairs that are useful. That may be, Jesus Christ, I'm unfair. They may be, Jesus Christ, do you know what? I really don't like taking the stairs, right? Jesus Christ, do you know what? I've made a mistake. I misjudged how long it was going to take me to go up these stairs. Do you know what? I shouldn't have taken 3 stairs at a time. I should have only taken 2, or I should have only taken 1. But if you take the lift to the penthouse, there is things you miss along the way. You miss lessons. You miss principles. And so I would share with you as a second thing to finish this off with, is that I would share with you that you need to stop taking shortcuts and you need to do whatever is necessary. Remember that human beings, we can grow, we can develop, we can get better. We don't have to stay where we were. Only trees and animals and other living organisms can have to do that. They have to operate by what is called an instinctive code. The geese can only fly south in the winter, but if you don't like how south is looking, you can go west, north, right, east. It's up to you. The choice is yours. But other animals can't do this. They can't do it. They have to operate on code, on an instinctive code. So those are the 2 things that I would share with you to begin off with and to get you on the right path. Tell the truth, and I call it absolute truth. Tell the absolute truth. Tell exactly how it is. Don't fluff it up. Don't try to make it look pretty. Tell it as it is. Babes, I lied to you. I told you that I had a job. I've never had a job. Babes, I'll be honest with you. I lost my virginity to you, and I never had a relationship prior to this. Say it as it is so that the person is really clear. Because let me tell you why. If you dribble in the truth, women usually can tell. And then you get them on a spiral which is going to only cause more problems for you. Once a woman has doubt in her, it doesn't stop there. It usually spirals. And it leads to this kind of questioning. What else are you lying about? What else have you told me that I can't trust? And then this is why I told you that the foundation for trust is integrity. Because now the house is falling down. Now she has to untangle. Well, hold on a minute. Did you tell me this because so when you said to me you wanted it, well, hold on a minute. So when you met me on this day and you said you were going to work, did you actually go to work? Do you see what I mean? And then it's just like a battle that you're never going to win. So that's what I would share with you. I don't know whether that's been useful for you or not, but congratulations once again, and I really hope that you become the best father that you can be, and I know you can be. So that ends this week's show. I don't know whether it's been useful for you guys or not. I don't know whether some of these situations you've experienced, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below, send me a message, and maybe you have a question that you want to ask. Send it to me privately, comment it below. I'd love to hear from you. Do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel Cassimotive so that I can keep sending you more of this stuff so that you can become your highest, fullest expression of yourself. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.